Yes.
Fantastic. I now call to order this meeting of the Master Plan Implementation Committee on Thursday, January 17th at 6:30. Our first order of business is the adoption of the agenda. Has everyone had a chance to see the agenda? Are there any modifications that anyone wants to make? Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All against? Abstentions? Nope, the agenda passes. Next we have the minutes, which I thought looked great. I like the way you do the minutes. Has everyone had a chance to look at them? Any modifications or changes? Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I will approve the minutes.
Is there a second? All right, all in favor? Aye.
I guess I abstained because I wasn't at the last
Okay,
meeting.
one abstention. And then, hey, good to see you, Michael.
Cool.
The next item on the agenda is we go to old business, the Transportation Committee. We talked last time about inviting some key members and setting up a group. I got one comment from Erica Flood, who isn't going to be here tonight. She's been here the last few meetings. She's not quite a member yet, but I think we're going to remedy that tonight. She's definitely going to be here going forward. She had to work. But she mentioned that she knew somebody who was on the bus company, or that she wanted to bring in and thought would be interested to, somehow to be a part of the group. I don't know who that is. I don't have much information about it, but I just want to let you know that, there's people out there starting to bring together the forces that be, and we might end up with, something to work with going forward for a working group. Does anyone else have any people that they looked at or anything they want to discuss regarding transportation? That at this juncture, I think we continue to wait until we get more momentum going. So then let's talk.
I was supposed to come up with a draft, so I have a draft. This was to send out to people.
Thank you.
That would be it. So,
Let's take a moment to absorb the draft. Okay, I think this is really good. I'm going to, with the committee's approval, unless someone has modifications to the text, and take a moment, I don't want to push it too fast. But as you're looking at that, I'd like to include this text in a statement to send. Or because you drafted it, you want the charge of emailing it to the group.
okay.
And hi, good to see you. I think that with a little message that says anyone that wants to recruit someone, please send them this. Okay?
And this is going out where?
To anyone that, well, it's going to go out to the
How's
group.
it? Yeah. How's it get disseminated?
Email. Do we have an extra one for us? Okay. We're talking about transportation, and Kurt put together a draft for help in the recruitment of potential working group members. All right. Any other comments about transportation? Let's go to the Energy Commission, which is tabled. We know that we're waiting for the mayor and Jessica to come back with more information. I haven't heard anything.
I believe there's a public hearing on that on 2 weeks.
Fantastic.
From yesterday.
I hadn't heard that yet.
That's on a city council agenda, so.
That's really good news. So there we have it. We've done something good already.
It's something.
All right then. So let's talk about Maureen is stepping down. She's had a lot going on. She sent me several emails over the course of the last 4 meetings saying, I'm not sure I can make it, I'm not sure I can make it. And I kept saying, oh, we'd love to have you because we really do. I love her presence. I thought she was a great addition to the committee. And I think it finally reached a point where, it's just too much. So she had to step down. We're a 9-member committee that puts us at 8. However, we've got Erica Flood, who, like I mentioned a moment ago, isn't here tonight. She had contacted me and said she has a very difficult work night. But she will be here regularly, as you've seen her in the past, and I personally would like to talk about voting her in as a full member, because it completes our complement, and I think she's a great member of the committee. Anyone want to talk about that a little bit?
I agree.
I agree too.
I agree.
I guess then we go for a motion to add Erica to the committee as the 9th member. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All against? Any abstentions? And it's unanimous. Erica is now an official member of the committee. All right, that puts us to our cover-to-cover chapter review of the housing project. We had a couple things here. Folks were going to think about metrics, and I was supposed to come up with a key. If you would be so kind as to pass that around. This is simple, and I left a lot of blank spots for different ideas. I wanted to go with something that was really very basic, and the purpose of this is so that we can imagine this table and the other tables in the book as we move forward, right? With 2 additional columns.
A couple copies short here.
Oh, forgive me.
You have enough for one more?
Nah, I only printed, I think.
So we can look on and then. Okay.
Thank you, Michael. I actually had 2 more, but it just came out white sheets of paper. Cosmic forces aligned against me. So imagine a couple more columns here on this chart.
Yeah.
One for the metric system that we're going to develop as a group, and then the other which is kind of a field for this key. I did not intend, although we can talk about this, for this key to be a 1 only. I intended for it to be a comma or a slash so that it could potentially have multiple results from this selection list, because it can be more than one thing. It could be complete but ongoing, or it could be, you follow what I'm saying? And it just gives us kind of a measure so that if we want to sort through these things, it gives us kind of a quick way to figure out what's going on. I don't think these are fantastic. It's just a quick 5 minutes before I came to the meeting kind of thing. First off, what do you guys think?
What else you do?
Seems like it allows them
Good enough for now, or not really?
to modify as we go, right?
Can strike some or add some and redo it. I don't really know. Again, the goal is to have multiple possibilities. But I guess if it's good enough for now, it's not something I want to vote on. It's just tossing this idea out. We all kind of have to work this all out. The next piece is about the metrics, which was the assignment for all of you to look at some of these and kind of toss around, how you wanted to evaluate them. Any ideas?
So is the idea just over the newbie still basically be giving a rating as we go down?
Yes. To sort of indicate what completion is, what it isn't, how we gauge these things, how we measure them. It's a difficult concept, and we were all kind of at the last meeting wondering how's that going to happen. I know one of the things you intend on talking about is sort of in this vein.
Kind of carries into it.
It does, yeah, but that's more the public.
Sure.
Okay, I'm asking.
Well, some of it is, I think initially of the comments that I was going to make with regard to that, the first one was cross-out items confirmed as complete. And that'd be something between this committee and maybe the planning department might know about certain items that are complete that we're not aware of at this point in time. But I think this builds on it further, and I think it's a good thing. It's exactly what we should be doing right now.
Okay. So I guess in terms of how we measure these things, if we were to look at that little key that I came up with, and if we were to pick one of these, hopefully an easy one, let's just take number 1 on page 40. Use CPA and/or grant funds to provide a rental voucher program for households up to 100% AMI. Okay, AMI?
Area median income.
Okay.
Oh, you weren't looking for a definition. You're like how to
No, I was definitely looking for a definition. Fishing for definition.
I was going
area median income.
Okay.
Actually, That is correct, right on. I'm pretty
I
sure
believe
it's been a
she's
long
correct.
time since I've been in the housing world, but when I was,
About that.
All right.
But there's a,
So we're talking about income levels and median income levels. And supposedly out there's what, like a state-based number or?
I think every year, annually, they have to kind of define what the median income is in order to, for example, qualify for public assistance towards housing. You usually have to fall into a certain level below 100% of area median income, but 100% is theoretically the median.
Right.
I mean, but yeah, I don't really know how they figure that out, but
So as long as you're
It's a
not
benchmark.
above the median income, there should be, the CPA or grant fund should be available for rental vouchers. So I don't know of any program that does this. I don't know if the CPA does this. It seems like we can ask the CPA to follow up on this further. Now I can kind of go through these line items like this and we can detail action items in an effort to get to the point where we can apply our key. But I want some feedback from you guys if that's kind of how you want to proceed with this.
Well, it's not a realistic good strategy. The CPA is limited.
Oh, with that,
Yeah,
okay.
it's not, it's, the amount of money that comes in from your CPA is variable depending on year to year. A lot of it is already kind of earmarked towards specific projects, often geared towards home ownership and updating. And the money is really small and it's not consistent. So establishing a voucher program which is ongoing month to month.
Where's the funding? So here you have something that seems like it may not hold up to light. But how do we decide that?
yeah.
Is that something the CPA should decide? And when they say grant funds, is that from the CPA or for some other organization? So, our job is to implement these strategies. And if we have one that doesn't hold the light, I guess the first thing we have to do is decide if it's something we want to pursue, maybe? I see a couple options. We decided as a group, this is something we want to pursue. If so, then we go to the CPA. We maybe toss it somewhere else to make sure it goes further.
Well, why was it?
No.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, I just want to say this. The other option is that we give it to the group like the CPA and ask them to help us decide whether, to give us more information about whether or not it is really viable. I trust you, I have your opinion, but, they might need to be involved in that decision. I'm sorry.
Yeah, my apologies. It's number one on the list. Somebody must have thought it was an important thing, or is it not?
I'm always going to be probably the one to remind everybody that these were not really meant to be, this is the most important thing, that's the next most important thing. These were all meant to be side by side of equal importance kinds of things.
Okay.
The process is how they ended up being stacked. But I believe I would accurately represent the master plan people in saying we wanted
But it
to
was
make
a-
sure that people did not think like, use CPA and grant is the number one most important thing in this list.
yeah, that's definitely accurate based on, my recollection from the master plan committee as well. That there wasn't, there might have been some level of importance, but not to the extent that it's like 1, 2, 3, 4,
Right.
5.
Yeah.
Maybe something that's up here is a little more important than there, but doesn't mean that it should be neglected over that.
Yeah, I would even go so far as to say probably the things at the bottom were considered less important than the things at the top, but it was never,
Ranking.
yeah, it was never a
never a true
ranking.
ranking.
Not a true, not a true ranking. We tried, but there were a lot of things, like, I think you could probably take the top 5 of any of them, and they were all considered very important.
Right.
Why don't we, my feeling is that we should proceed just kind of going line item by line item, putting the best we have into it, kind of accumulating it, attempting to give it a score. In cases where we feel like we need to go outside to get information, we do that, and we just accumulate the scores as we go. Is that okay?
Yeah, I wondered do we need like a sort of, in the key, maybe there's a, I don't know a good way to put it, but, bounce it to somebody to verify that it's viable kind of
Yeah,
thing?
like the feasibility. I feel like feasibility feels like an important way of, there's a lot of things that could prevent something from being feasible, but that would need to be vetted most likely by a body other than us at this table, or at least maybe one person would take the lead around this table on getting a sense of feasibility, and maybe that could be like we could, I don't know, I always like, how do we do that? Maybe like 1, 2, 3, like, you know, sorting. I do think we need to like figure out how to sort.
Yeah.
And like have things rise to the top without duplicating the process that was already put into this. But feasibility seems to be something that's not taken. I don't think that they took. How much did people have? Like,
The way I would categorize it is that it was a vision. It's a visioning process.
Right.
So, yeah, there was some pie in the sky involved. That's not to say that I don't think that everything was hoped to be feasible.
yeah.
But it was definitely meant to be a visionary document.
So we talked about having a key item that is part of our process, part of vetting it. Feasibility was the word that you used,
Yeah.
going out and checking. Do any of these words kind of cover that?
Ongoing.
It's close. So we had a new word. Whose is feasibility? That doesn't really describe. MPIC process.
That's too big.
Due diligence.
Okay.
Which one?
He said due diligence. DD. I like the fact
Kind of
that
means
it's two initials.
So that it's something we would show over to somebody else.
Vetting could also be one for
First further
fee.
investigation.
Yeah.
Vetting is
I think it's good.
Anyone else? Okay, which one?
I kind of think vetting sounds like what we would be doing in some cases, and vetting is when we're not sure and we have to ask someone else. Feasibility is when we think that it doesn't.
So I think that when we mark this vetting, we should say where. Vetting with like CPA, vetting with.
Vetting is probably a little more accurate than due diligence under those circumstances.
Sounds right,
I agree with you.
So let's, again, we're not voting on this, is all hazy, we'll work this out slowly. Let's add vetting to the list. So who do we vet this with? With the CPA and the grant funds to do a rental voucher? Do we go to the CPA, send someone there and say, look, we feel, or we've heard.
What is the CPA?
Well, I mean, the CPA is, it's an application to the state by planner, isn't it? I believe.
I thought we were talking about community preservation.
Right, but
That's what I thought we were.
Okay.
it is a community preservation act.
Yeah.
So there's statewide folks.
Is there a committee?
Yeah, there's a committee.
Okay.
Then, yeah.
So,
I wonder, do we do these one at a time? Is that easier on them, or should we try to like go through and bulk it?
yeah, I figured we can try and punch through, depending on how long it takes, we've got some time, try and get through the first however many, and then when we hit our time limit, hey, we're done.
Yeah.
And we'll hit it next time. And then, if that goes a week or two before we sort of divvy up the vetting stage so that we can bulk it, I think that's for the best. I mean, you raise a really good point. Let's do it in bulk,
Yeah.
unless someone disagrees. All right, so number one, we're going to vet with CPA for is this a realistic goal?
We can already tag 3 as complete.
All right, I'm going to put 2 in here and let's skip right to 3. Adopt Chapter 40, our smart growth zoning district. Yes. So, it's too bad the maps are in the other room. I would have liked to be here, have that for this. But we have the back of the book, don't we?
Yeah, there's a,
Where is it?
on the last page.
I mean, where is the 40R right now?
That was one of the things that
I
Jessica,
thought it was complete, wasn't it?
yeah.
Yeah, does
Like
anyone
the-
know where it is?
I don't.
Downtown, isn't it? It's
I think it's in the middle too, yeah.
downtown.
Okay.
I'm sure.
Because I know there's something potentially about another one up in here, but
about my digital
But I know that one was downtown.
Can you find it?
all right.
I think there's zones of it, and so. it looks
Number
like-
3, we skipped to 3. Adopt Chapter 40R Smart Growth Zoning District, and I believe we're marking it completed.
Yeah, that's, Carson Street.
Parsons.
I think it's, well, isn't it, so from this map, it looks like there are 3 districts, part of the smart
But
growth zone
I think those were,
in
maybe.
the future.
Those are proposed.
At the time they were proposed, they weren't yet adopted yet.
Okay, great.
I think they only approved 2 of them.
Okay.
Do you know which ones?
Yeah, the ones in the center of town were both approved, Northampton Street wasn't.
Okay. Not Northampton. Okay, so we can mark that completed, that's fantastic. Let's go back to number 2, which is to use CPA and/or grant funds, boy, we saw that one before, to provide down payment assistance to first-time home buyers, up to 100% of AMI. This is very similar to number 1, except instead of rental vouchers, it's down payment for first-time home buying. All right.
Sounds like the same vetting process, yeah, the bulk,
I would be.
go in bulk.
Okay.
Kind of combine those?
Yeah.
One question?
Yeah. With CPA, you bring up, should we combine it?
I mean, as far as asking CPA about
Absolutely. Now, you seem to have some knowledge of this. Again, is this a situation, just out of curiosity, that you think might be, again, be an unrealistic goal for lack of funding? Is it the same kind of response you had to the first one?
It would not, you know, I suppose it's possible 1 year. Okay. I guess. The other one might be possible, but I think I doubt it.
All right. Any more conversation about that? Number 4. Hire a part-time staff person to work on housing issues for the city. We have been, don't we?
Yeah, but that's also the, I can never say correctly. I was going to say CDGB.
Community Development Block Grant, yeah.
Right. That's a big part of it.
So what we're saying here is that when it ended up happening is that the CDBG sort of adopted that role, so a person became unnecessary. Is that?
I wouldn't want to speak for anyone, but I think it would be fair to say that that is...
Would that be something that we would ask Jessica?
I think so.
To just define, because I don't have really knowledge of the staffing of the city. I mean,
Let's vet, and I think both complete and obsolete, because we didn't really need the position, but it's also kind of filled by another group, so vet, complete, obsolete.
and here's a question, and I hate to throw it out there, but like the reason why we're talking about this more than just saying like vet is because we want to put the current updated like we want to all ourselves know what the current accurate status is.
Yeah, and because Jessica wants one thing from us,
That
and one thing alone.
updated
It's at the
status
top of her list. She wants all of these
to be
in a
updated.
sheet that is updated. And I'm, again, still planning on putting these on Google Documents, but they're having trouble finding, I don't know if anyone saw the response Jessica sent. I don't know if she just sent it to me or not, but she basically, the PVPC can't find the documents. So they're looking elsewhere. They're hunting for them.
I'm sorry, the record 4 was vetting?
Yeah, vetting, and also either complete or and obsolete, because it's not really, we don't need a person, but then again, the job was kind of filled, so.
The vetting would be to...
Ask Jessica.
To make sure that we're correct about that.
Yeah, that we don't need a to hire a part-time staff person for housing issues, because it is in fact being done by CDBG.
So can I just backpedal a little bit? Because even though we're not vetting number 3, we actually, maybe the expert in the room hasn't identified, like I am not super clear about the current status of, like maybe we
Chapter
don't
40?
need to know, yeah, but like,
It's been done, they've got 2 smart growth districts.
right, but so I'm sorry, I'm just saying like, if we're updating it, doesn't it behoove all of us to know?
I mean, like we should say where they are and
Yeah, if it's complete, then it's just done and like we have no more responsibility, like, like,
I think your
sorry, I might be,
point is well taken, that maybe, for one thing, maybe what we ought to do is when we finish going through this list like this, we hand it in its entirety over for others to go through and say, oh, oh, no, you're wrong about number 6.
Yeah.
You know, instead of just parsing it out so that it's like, oh, question number 2 we thought we would ask you about. We should be more open about it and just hand the whole thing over and say, here's what we came with. Looks like we already did number 3, and that way people can go like, yeah, yep, number 3 was done. And if somebody
fact check it.
yeah, a little
Yeah.
fact
Someone
check.
double check it, that's right.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. Is that what you were getting at with that?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. So we're going to mark it completed, but everything we do is going to go through a review process at the end. I think that's a smart idea. Okay. Number 5. Adopt a zoning amendment that would allow planned unit development with an arts incentive. Some percent of the ground floor would be set aside for artists, and some portion of the 12% of affordable housing would be for artist housing. Okay, this is a zoning amendment.
Yeah.
For artist housing,
And
it's
it's a two-parter, isn't it? Because the zoning board part has to come first, and then you'd have to work with contractors or developers to do the second part?
This almost reminds me of the green stuff we've been working on in the planning board, where we're trying to provide incentives for developers. It's not an easy thing to do. Some percent of the ground floor would be set aside for artists, and some portion would be for artist housing. What is the difference between artists and artist housing? Is it one like a work studio?
Yeah.
Galleries.
Yeah.
I mean, this is something that seems like would be looked at when they do the overhaul of the zoning ordinance.
The ZBA?
Yeah. Well, the planning department, when they, have the funding to do the overhaul of the entire ordinance, and somehow with the appropriate people involved, perhaps, the artist community and so forth, input on that.
Maybe they could be appended on. I know at the meeting for the Arts District, they talked about the need for continuity in proximity. They need to be one next to the other, next to the other. You can't hopscotch. So maybe the zoning board could come up with incentives then that would create that continuity. So like if you're on Pleasant Street and you're next door already to something that's at the current tail end of the Arts District, if you want to become part of the Arts District, here's an incentive.
We definitely don't have this already. And it seems like what we want to do as a group is to bring it before the appropriate boards. So we want to vet it with ZBA and planning.
That makes sense to me.
Okay. Vet, ZBA, and planning. Okay.
But when we're vetting it, we're asking them, is this a priority for them to do tomorrow, next year, 5 years?
But also, is it realistic?
Yeah, I think the first
Right.
question is it already done and we just don't know?
Right.
Is it realistic? Is it right? And then I guess, assuming they say it is realistic, it is right, then we chew it over and
I have
come
another
back.
question on one of those lines. 15 Cottage Street is going to be done. Is that something that they can incorporate into that project at the same time?
That's a good point.
I was wondering that too.
And that's kind of where they're anyways. I mean, I don't know how much room they have. I haven't seen the plans yet, but I know they're getting close, so.
I think that's really smart. So, a couple things. I think it's good to be putting these little notes in there too, because it gives us more ammo to bring, and it's a good question, what are we doing? And that's right in line. We're going to bring these specific questions. We're going to, when we get through this whole process and look through it, delegate for members of the team to go to the different boards and ask the questions. So there'll be, I think, a second opportunity to say, hey, wait a minute, what are we asking? As we go through this.
Right.
All right, number 6. Develop design guidelines / zoning ordinance that take should be an S there, well maybe not, that take into account the need for green space and green building. I know this is up in front of the planning board right now. We've been discussing it. We've actually been around and around and around it and tossed it back to the PVPC. They came to us with a nice 15-page thick document with tons of regulations and rules and guidelines. It was really well thought out and put together, but we thought it was just absolute overkill that would end up bogging things down and not being used. So we came up with a rewards-based system, point-based system concept, hasn't been developed. We pushed it back to them and asked us to bring it to us. That was just a few pages and focused on just a few elements. It had lots of different things in it, like, you know, what are you doing with old trees? Can we get you to not tear them down? Or thinking about water, and you know, tons and tons of different factors involved in it. So right now, this is something that's actually in process.
Cool.
I think I had that in there. Isn't it?
SP, some progress?
Some progress. I would call it some progress.
Great, some progress. All right, so that's green. Some progress. Okay. Number 7. Assist the East Hampton Housing Authority in building new units at the back of their existing Holyoke Street property. Okay, I don't know anything about it.
Yeah, this,
I just wonder if there's actually any room to do that back there. There's a brook that runs along the back of that property.
Tight.
Yeah.
I think that's in the process now, isn't it?
Do you know
There's
what
discussion on that, yeah.
at what board?
I don't know how far it's gotten, but I've heard of it, and it is in, I think it's in the process now.
Okay, well that's good. What we need to do is find out. So that Jessica, and then some progress? Question mark.
What would be the housing authority?
Yeah.
That makes sense.
that's, yeah.
Right? That Housing Authority. Some progress. Okay. Any other comments about that? Number 8. Develop an education piece defining affordable housing and including it in the Daily Hampshire Gazette's The Summit, which goes to all East Hampton households on Thursdays.
Well, I'm scared that hasn't been done.
I really don't know.
I guess we could contact them and ask, because if they had it, they'd have it on file and could find it. I suppose I might not have noticed it if it happened.
And Jess might not be aware because it may have been from Stuart's time when that was done. So I think that's interesting. That Gazette
I'm thinking.
and Jess, just in case she has to trace it back. I think it's a great idea to educate people about what's going on, inform them. You know, part of me, this is strange, I was just going to think, you know how, I'm assuming you all get the little pamphlet from the water department about our water quality regularly. I love that pamphlet. I mean, that might be another alternative too if the budget doesn't send something about housing. Anyway, number 9. Require Energy Star rated appliances in all city permitted developments.
So I had a question. City permitted developments, are we talking about?
And what's not permitted?
Yeah,
It's not very
we're
clear.
talking city buildings? Is that what it means?
I feel the same sense of desire for an answer. I mean, everything that's built is city permitted, right? I mean, unless there's certain small, like you're building a shed that's under 100 feet and it's 6 feet away or some stupid stuff like that. Everything's got permit. So we're saying everything in East Hampton has to be Energy Star.
That's including
What's not Energy
households?
Star these days?
That's, well,
I'm guessing that, I mean, it's a guess. I can't speak for everybody, but I think they might have meant city build, you know, like this building.
This building?
I think that's probably what they were aiming at.
I don't see how you could require that.
No.
It doesn't make sense.
No, I mean, we could
Promote
encourage it,
it.
promote it, yeah.
You certainly can't require it.
Are appliances built today that aren't energy rated? Do they still sell them that aren't energy rated
It's a
today?
good question. They're probably not selling a lot.
Fewer and fewer,
I
yeah.
think they are all, aren't they
Yeah.
all?
And you could still buy one that wasn't, even if it wasn't new, I'm assuming, so as a homeowner, you could still have the potential to have a non-Energy Star, I assume.
An old or used, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I say vet mare. Well, ask the mayor, what are they using in here? Maybe Barry. And possibly obsolete.
Well, no, never mind.
Anything else? Okay. Number 10. Procure appropriate developer for Everett Street property.
Is that the property that's going to Habitat for Humanity?
I was hoping somebody would ask the question.
Does anybody have the answer?
I don't know.
I'm assuming that's the old gas station that they
Yeah.
tore down. And
Vet planning board.
Oh, yeah, you know what, I think I remember, this is only my very fallible memory, but I do think that's what that was about.
Well, let's see.
That old gas station with all the issues for cleanup that...
What's there now?
Nothing.
I think there's an old house in the back. I think there's a sign that says Habitat for Humanity on the property now.
I assume Jess would be the one to know. Jess,
Yeah, it's right across the street from where she lives.
All right. We're going to have a big long list of questions they can answer for us. That's going to really propel us forward. Number 11. Identify all parcels of city-owned land that might be available for housing development. Work with the mayor and city council to donate land to appropriate housing entity, such as Housing Partnership, Community Development Corp., Habitat for Humanity, etc.
we know that's at least partial because since this was written, the property there on East Street, right, that's, you guys know what I'm talking about, there's development there on Mount Tom and East Street that hasn't gone into construction yet, but that was already approved. I think it was the Pascomet Conservation Trust that ended up acquiring that for the city, and it's includes some affordable housing and protection against further development. What they got out of the deal was part of the property up the mountain, so that in perpetuity that remains green. So it was a little bit of a trade-off. You get a little affordable housing, and a little development, and some green space that can...
Whereabouts is this?
It's,
Now, this was city-owned land previously?
it wasn't previously, it was privately owned.
Okay.
And it was purchased off of, I can almost remember the name of the folks that live there. It's right there near the intersection with Ferry Street.
Okay.
So this says identify
Those
all
are
parcels
Habitat
of
for
city-owned land.
Is that...
I thought they were going to put a couple of Habitat for Humanity houses there.
It could be, actually, because they would be the developer there. It was Pascomet Conservation that originally, I think, brokered the deal.
It's these two. Let's see, where's Ferry Street again? I just lost it. Right there. So
Yeah.
parcel right there.
Yeah, that long parcel, that's it. And then they got a deal for these two in the back, I think.
You're not talking about like the Brickyard Brook area, are you?
No. I mean, we can check on it, but I'm thinking that means that's at least partially in progress.
Well, I'm guessing the mayor would know if he's giving any land away, right?
Vet mare and partial. Well, what's the actual, we have
Partial.
some projects partially implemented. Yeah, those are kind of, gonna have to figure out which one to use. But PI, we haven't used it yet, let's use it. Vet mare and PI. All right, now I know that you've got some stuff you want to talk about at the very end. So we've got a few minutes left here. Number 13. Take advantage of all grant rounds with the state, such as HDSP, CDBG, etc.
Now that one seems like,
I get, Jessica's always sending emails about, grants are up, stay informed. I feel like, they're very much keeping track of that between the mayor and Jess.
So it's ongoing?
Definitely, yeah, ongoing. 14, work with developers who want to do Chapter 40B developments in the city to get projects that everyone will be pleased with. Provide incentives for developers willing to include green space, building, in their designs.
You don't have impossible on it.
Can I just mention, I wasn't on this subcommittee.
I think we need help from
That's
Ludacris.
definitely fine.
Yeah. Wow. What to do with that? Well, the last part, provide incentives for developers willing to include green space building in their design. That's underway. Chapter 40B.
Yeah, that, I don't really see that that has a ranking that we can
Yeah.
give, but
Well, there's two things. Developers for Chapter 40B and willingness for green space. The willingness for green space, we've already kind of, it's part of one already that we touched on, the green. So, I almost feel like that should be struck from this because it's already in a line item that we're dealing with. And then as far as the 40B is concerned, do you have any idea what 40B's been done?
Not exactly,
No.
not specifically.
So I'm going to vet Jessica on the 40B part.
I'd be okay if others are with, as you say, just referencing the prior number that mentioned because it is redundant.
It's completely redundant, unless someone doesn't agree. Let's strike that. Provide incentives for developers willing to include green space buildings in their designs. Struck from 14. Now,
wait a minute. Is Chapter 40B and Chapter 40R smart growth different? Okay, because I just noticed that.
and I know smart growth in 40R. I had a nice session about 40B. I'm sitting here like, someone's going to tell me what that is.
Affordable housing.
Well, 40B is
For the affordable housing requiring the 10% minimum affordable housing for community by state law.
They can get it approved without going through all the hoops as long as
That's correct, yep.
they can put more units on per acre.
If you don't meet the 10%, yeah, you can avoid the, well, 100%.
and I believe
There's more to it than that. but-
40R is more mixed use.
Yeah, that's mixed use.
So business
So have we set up any 40B like districts or?
40B is where the Parsons Street Village is. And I believe the 40R might be Franklin Street.
So we do have some.
Yeah, Parsons Street's 40.
Okay, so ongoing.
Sure.
Vet with Jessica and
I don't think we can do anything with everyone will be pleased with,
Right.
because I hate it. No, but, I mean, certainly, the Parsons Street is implementation.
I mean, it's partially underway. Yeah. I mean, you're right that we could say ongoing doesn't quite fill it because it's been done before. What's the one that's partially implemented? PI. Let's switch that to PI. You're right.
It might be implementation stage. I mean, they're going to start the building, aren't they?
Parsons?
Yes.
Yeah, that's.
I heard that it's proceeding.
Probably, but I did all the original work on the plan.
So I thought it was approved. Yeah.
Let's vet Jessica and PI, and maybe Jessica can confirm that it is in fact underway and moving forward, and we can convert that PI to a person. All right. In future land preservation projects, consider developing affordable housing on small portion of parcel. Oh, the grammar there is awful. In future land preservation projects, consider developing affordable housing on small portion of parcel.
Well, that's what happened on that East Street development.
Is that like
exactly what-
subdividing like a larger parcel so that affordable housing can be built on? Because that seems to be antithetical to a lot of the open space one, but I could be reading into it.
Well, I definitely think there are some, conflicting desires for use of space,
Yeah.
but I would say that's at least happening to some degree, in that was part of the deal about that Pascaman property.
To keep some
Part
of it
went-
open, keep some
Keep some of it green, keep some of it open, and keep some of it as low-income housing.
Because some of these seem like more like conceptual visionary things. Like, of course we're going to try to do this while we do this, but like, there's no ability to be done with that. So it doesn't seem like...
You can put a metric to it, yeah. I mean, I could ask, like, on that one, is there some kind of handout or something that they give to developers to remind them that they should think about it or something? Maybe that's a tangible...
Right.
I think this is...
Or like, that really comes down to like, city councilors should know that when they're like approving something, that this is like part of the master plan, because this is like something that is a part of a value system that doesn't translate into a tangible being done with it or not done with it. And that's good. I don't want to lose that. I don't want to be like, okay, we're done with it, so we're striking it out of the master plan, but
yeah.
Short of like telling the city council, like I don't know how else to translate that.
Ongoing?
I guess so, yeah, it has to be ongoing.
I think it's
You can consider it forever.
Yeah, I think that's permanently ongoing, yeah, that's the only thing. I think 15 is enough for one night. My friends. It's half the list.
That could be infill housing, actually. That 15. I mean, I could, in theory, sell a quarter acre of land in my house, my yard, and build a house there.
Alright. I think that's a good start. When next we come together, we'll just keep going through the rest of the list and complete it. When the whole thing is complete, at that point, we'll get it typed up so that we can make a presentation and then sit down and look at it again, just make sure we're not crazy. Try to go through quick. In that second eye stage we talked about. And then we will delegate and split up and start to find out the things that need to be vetted. And hopefully we'll end up with it's done. We can move to the next chapter in a couple weeks. A little while. Okay, great progress. Now we're up to presentation from you.
Okay, well, what I've been thinking about quite a bit here is how we update our implementation table. We talked about that. The dates are outdated, obviously, the target dates, and that coincides perfectly with what we're doing here. So, ideal time to be doing this. And the first suggestion I was going to make was obviously to cross off the items confirmed as complete, but we're doing that through this better process, more thorough process, I think. So we can check that as in progress. Also, we do need to update those target dates. That's something that, we could discuss among ourselves. Maybe we want to update them everything 5 years. Maybe we want to think about whether or not we, or if different dates are more appropriate based on how we prioritize things as we go forward. So maybe that's something that we look at after we, go through this process, or concurrent. I mean, that's up to the group. I don't know, I said or part of public process, but I don't know that that's really a public process. I think what we're doing here is better as a group to be doing it that way. What I do think is a public process is if we add new items to this plan. If we add new strategies to the plan. I mean, there's things that have happened in the last 5 years that maybe weren't even thought of at the time of this plan. That happens when you have a long-range planning document. I think having a public workshop of some sort would help us to get feedback from the community to see if there are other items that are not in this plan. Give them an opportunity, say it's on the website, go look at the plan, come to our workshop and give us your input. Do you like what's here as it is? Do you think there's something else that should be in here? And then we can take that back and discuss it among ourselves and see where it fits into this document. So I think that's pretty important to do that, but that's a public process, and we should have some sort of preliminary list maybe of ideas that are things that are ongoing that we can at least get to start the process with the public so that they can kind of feel comfortable in getting involved in that, something to give them a head start and working with us on that.
Wait, do you mean by that we would say, here are some of the things that our committee has already tackled with the master plan?
Yep, I mean, you could do that and just say, here's the master plan that's on the city's website. Here are some things that we're talking about right now. Here are some things that the city is thinking about that are not in the master plan right now. Take those, consider them, come to our meeting, present your ideas. If you have other ideas that are not here, we want to know those as well. We'll take that and we'll analyze that feedback among our group and use that to move forward in our long-range process.
So overall, we're talking about the process of adding concepts to the master plan.
Part of an overall larger process, yeah, that's one element of it. Yeah, exactly. And I think that by doing all that, you get the update to the implementation table that I know that Jessica has talked about, and it's very important, I mean, to make sure that we are, I mean, you can't be going forward with dates 2008, and it's 2013. We gotta make sure that it's current and up to date, and that we're working with that, and that we're hearing what the public says 5 years later.
I just wanted to tack on that I thought too that as we complete things and where we're at with things, it's really important to let the public know that progress has been made.
Right.
If there's any one complaint I heard in the interim between when we finished the master plan document and before the MPIC was formed, it was a lot of curmudgeonly kind of like, yeah, so fat lot of good that did. A real cynical kind of jaded, yeah, we come up with all these good ideas and they go right in file 13, right in the trash can. So I think people would really appreciate knowing that something is happening, and especially the things that get done. I think.
Well, here's the thought. I mean, well, you say that. I mean, maybe the thing is maybe to have this workshop in the spring, for example, if we're ready at that point in time. Then after that, make it an annual event. You know, so that it's something that you're constantly keeping them involved. You're asking for their ideas, and
that goes perfectly with the concept.
It helps us, and it helps us in our work.
And it goes perfectly with the concept of the master plan was that it was a long range, 25 and 50 years was the time frame this was meant to cover. So if you had an annual event, then it keeps people from.
And I'm thinking of something along the lines, not as large, but remember the Saturday event that we had during the process there? Maybe just like one element of that where you get a room like at Whitebrick or something like that, and you have a 4-hour session, you have coffee available in the morning, you have it on a Saturday morning, people come in and they do their thing.
Ideas.
Then you take those ideas, you let them know what the feedback was, and then we bring it back to you.
That's a great idea.
Totally on board with that.
So that's kind of where I'm going with this. That's what I was thinking. Like I said, I'd be glad to facilitate that section in the spring, and we can work that out.
Excellent.
And we should all be there, obviously, and do that. But we can talk about that further, but in future meetings. But I think that's pretty much where I'm going with it right now.
That's good direction. Any comments, anyone? No?
Well, I totally agree, and I love it, and I think I just want to add on to the fact that I don't feel like I know the public sentiment on this because I didn't live here when this happened. So I'm really removed from what feels like the community sense of this document. But because of that, and given what you just said, I do feel like I would like to protect what we've created by actually being able to start the meeting by saying what we've done. Because I guess I just feel like if people really are skeptical that we are doing something, I wouldn't want them to derail the momentum we're creating now by coming in and saying, well, but I don't think people are going to be like that harsh, but I do think that would be something important that we should think about.
When we would have a structured agenda.
In the agenda, yeah.
I'm pretty sure I heard you say coffee and donuts, so they definitely
well, that helps to bring people in. That's all part of this sort of thing. It does help bring people in. And, structured agenda like that. And it's not, we're talking about a public workshop. We're not talking about a public hearing that's advertised and so forth. We're a workshop, community input session, community involvement session.
Right.
Big difference between the two. So.
Good work.
So we'll keep that moving along.
Any reports that anyone wants to make from any of the side projects that we had going on earlier in our MPIC process or anything else?
I did go to EDIC on Tuesday. So basically I met with EDIC about the short-term streetscape improvements that we were talking about. their feedback was that the trees along Union and Cottage Street are really bad, and maybe an inventory of the condition of those trees would be a good place to start, where it's something that is little or no cost. Maybe it's something this group could do, maybe it's something the planning department would do, I don't know, but it's a place to start, at least to know the condition of what's there.
We have a tree warden that works for
Or the tree warden.
Yeah, he works for the city.
Do we still have a tree warden?
Yeah.
He came to one of the planning board meetings a few months back.
Great.
So the tree inventory was something that they were interested in our group looking at as a short-term, low-cost, no-cost improvement. They did mention, as far as getting planters and other things like that and benches and stuff, one way to possibly get money is to request a donation from the businesses in the downtown. Perhaps a $25 donation or something that they would give. And if there's something that's out in front of their, not necessarily directly in front, but within the Cottage Union Street area, they might be on board with that if it helps to draw people to their businesses. So that was a suggestion that was made by the group.
I know some of them are already doing that with the Nash Gallery, and the bridge, and it's a really good idea.
Does Northampton actually have a community improvement district, and it's mandatory?
They have a fee they have to pay to be a part of it.
Yeah,
Business.
business.
Business improvement.
Downtown business improvement
I
district.
heard there's been a lot of recent hullabaloo about that.
Well, yeah.
Is that through the chamber?
I'm not sure, but I heard it's like mandatory. You don't really have a choice if you're in that certain area. You got to pay. Just kind of,
All right.
But that's a fine if you want some money. You have to make it high priced, but
That's how we can get our budget.
that's right.
They also mentioned on May 4th is cleanup day, annual cleanup day, and they said maybe if we can coordinate some sort of event in correlation with that. I don't know exactly what that would be, but somebody threw out that idea at the meeting.
I just want to mention to that, it's a good idea, but it's very hard to do.
I figured it would be because they're devoted to the one reason they're there.
Well, I tried to do it with the local works, and I was on the EDIC, and the problem is that there's always car washes that go on that day. There's always events at Nonotuck Park that go on that day, and there's people are always somewhere else.
Yeah, I wasn't sure exactly how that would work out, but again, that's something that they
It's hard
mentioned.
to get volunteers to do cleanup.
We actually have some years that are good, some years that are bad, but
Does the planning board, how are
the EDIC does it with the chamber and through the chamber. I pick up the trash.
And they also mentioned that we should, work concurrently with the cultural district on Cottage Street with the improvements in the new cultural district. It's currently in progress over there, and I think Burns is involved with that. And they said maybe some stuff, concurrently with that.
Those are good ideas.
So that's my report on that. They put me on their next month's agenda again.
So if you go back, please send a thank you that we appreciate the input they're giving us.
So if I can attend the next meeting, I'll bet again it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so I may not be able to, but if I can, I'll go chat with them again.
Awesome. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other reports that anyone has?
Not exactly a report, but I did want to ask folks, as I'm working on the cable car project, what I've been doing is mapping a top-down map and getting a lot of photographs so that people would be able to conceptually visualize what we're talking about. I wanted to get input from the group about were there things that people thought that I should be sure to include, or recommendations about the best way to present this information. Even just something you're like, you would want to know? Is there something? I'm doing pretty good with it. I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't working in a bubble.
I did some research, and the last cable car system built in the United States was in Portland. It stretches for less than a mile, and the cost came in at $54 million.
There's a bunch of different ones, because I looked into, there's San Francisco has some low-cost ones, short distance, and London has like a massive one.
Right.
And there's a whole bunch of variability about the you've got the tower and the car and the span. And those three variables make a big difference on the cost, because I got a company that gave us an estimate of $1 million a mile. And like I said, I thought, oh, that's horrible, and then Stuart Beckley told me, like, no, that's great,
amazing,
that's
yeah.
way cheap.
My take on this is that you're going to get a lot of initial skepticism, initial skepticism, in that if you're seeking advice on how to present it, the next 10 times you think you're ready to present, don't.
Okay.
Go back, clean it up again. I don't say that because I don't want it. I'd love to see the presentation, but my advice is this thing, if you want it to go somewhere, it's got to be spotless.
Well, there's all this attention on like transportation at the state level, so it's like, I mean, I'm a skeptic, but there's momentum around transportation.
Yeah, I think and the angle that I would take to telling people is, damn right, it's going to cost a lot, but so does everything else. And it's really more about a question of, does it move us more in the direction we're trying to go than the alternatives? You know, it's just like the Calvin Coolidge Bridge, and for so long everyone said it's just cost prohibitive to expand it. And eventually it got expanded. It cost a tremendous amount, took a long time, and I think most people would already say it's getting close to maximum capacity again. So, you know, I'm not going to argue to anybody that this is free and easy.
No.
I'm just going to present that
Talking
it's a
about
little edgy, yeah.
security.
It's also fits in with the idea of not needing cars so much. You know, you put your bike on the cable car, you ride it into Northampton, you get off, you ride your bicycle to the end of King Street where you needed to go that the cable car didn't. So it's not in of itself a one-stop solution to anything, but it's part of an integrated network of mass transportation options. That means that you might not have to own a car, but you could still function in the area. It's that kind of thing that I'm just mostly trying to put it out there to people to like consider.
See, I mean, I would love for something like that to be feasible. I really would. I just think that you're going to get so many obstacles. That presentation really has to cover, you know, everything. Sure. It's got to have videos. It's got to have visuals, and it's got to have people there that can talk about how it's working in their community. So I don't know if you got to get some full on. You just got to cover every base to really pull something like that off for the community.
Maybe even a tourism element, because that draws people to the community, because I mean it's unique. It's definitely, you know, that might be something that helps to make the case a little stronger.
If we get to go up to the top of the mountain.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, that's one of the pictures I already have is of the Skinner systems, because I think people forget we already had this once.
Right.
You know, and this whole thing was meant to be sort of a response to the initial question, could we bring back the trolley cars? That's what kicked this whole thing off.
Why did the trolley cars fail?
Because they were bought out by the tire companies. The Firestone and Bridgestone tire companies teamed up with oil companies to buy out the trolley cars
And stop it.
and stop the trolley cars to further the sales of tires.
We're
and
getting
automobiles.
past our deadline now, so I definitely want to continue that conversation. We'll have it again, but I don't want to keep it late because I don't want to keep it. So unless there's anything absolutely urgent, I'm seeking a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much, folks.